Our next speaker is both a filmmaker and a political consultant. I mean, how about best of both worlds, huh? He's gonna join us on the stage and tell us a little bit about the bridge between aesthetics and audience. Let's welcome Matthew Taylor.
How about those speakers? They're great, right? 101 years ago, an artist by the name of Marcel Duchamp bought a urinal, changed its orientation by putting it on its side, autographed it, Armut 1917, and anonymously put it into an art show. Now, the important thing about this particular art show is this was the Art Independence in New York, which was modeled after the French Indépendance in Paris. Both of these shows had a similar motto: no jury, no prize. It basically means that anybody could put a piece in the show for $6. And Duchamp was asked to sit on the board primarily because he was a French artist and had experience with the French Indépendance. So what's with the urinal then? Well, 5 years earlier, Duchamp did in fact enter a piece into the French Indépendance in Paris. And what happened? Well, the Cubists, who were the dominant art movement at the time, were very doctrinaire, and they said, nudes cannot descend the stairs, they can only lie down. And they kicked him out of the art show, the no jury, no prize art show, by the way. Well, 5 years later, he's in New York. And you see, the whole point of this Artist Independence show was that anybody could enter a piece without the fear of being judged by a jury. But since the American independence was modeled after the French Indépendance, Duchamp, who, by the way, had been judged and kicked out of the show, knew that the American version had already betrayed its principles. And he set out to break the system with this urinal. Well, what happens? Well, it's a huge scandal, of course. It gets removed from the show for being indecent, and Duchamp goes on to break way more than some obscure art show in 1917. The urinal, or fountain, is known as a ready-made. That's basically a already-made object that becomes art because I say it's art. First, he eliminated the aesthetic from the art. Basically, art was traditionally paintings, sculptures, retinal, pleasing to the eye. You knew it was art because, it looked like art. But a ready-made, well, what's not already made? How would you know if it was art or if it was just an object? Anyway, who could even define art after this? Since Duchamp had not actually made the urinal, how could you prove authorship? And then, did an artist even have to make anything to be an artist? What about crafts? What about design? What about architecture? And really, a more critical implication of this urinal was that Duchamp separated concept from object. This was a scenario where an idea alone could be art without any object, meaning the idea or concept was the ready-made. It was irrelevant what you picked as a ready-made. The ready-made would completely destroy the definition of art forever, because now, well, anything could be art and anybody could be an artist. This allowed for appropriation, sampling, fair use, memes, parodies, performance art, ephemeral art, and this is why Duchamp is considered basically the father of conceptual art. He opened up a gateway for unlimited experimentation, creativity, and possibilities with the urinal, and also a lot of really bad art. He would influence Warhol, Johns, Koons, Rauschenberg, Beck, Lady Gaga, and literally thousands and thousands of more artists. But here's the question. How does this new art work? Well, it's easy to understand traditional art because you don't question whether a painting is art in the first place. But conceptual art, that's not about what you actually see with your eyes. It's actually about your mind. It's actually about what you think. When you walk through MoMA and you see the urinal on a pedestal, you don't use your eyes. You actually use your brain. Basically, because you have to ask yourself all these questions of, well, how did this get here? And why is this here at all? And what does this mean? But you didn't ask any of those questions about Starry Night in the previous room because you just accepted that it's art, or whatever that means. That is because the ready-made exists primarily to challenge your preconceived notions about what is art. The interaction between you and the object is one of thought reassignment. This is no longer a toilet. Your thoughts are reassigned because the concept of the object has been altered by its context and orientation. This all happens not with your eyes, but in your mind. The object is actually not the thing that changes. You are the thing that changes. So this brings me to my final point. What in the world am I talking about? Well, it's a toilet, right? Well, what is our object? A candidate, a cause, a bill? Well, you know, what we do is we communicate with the public that our guy, or proverbial toilet, is art in a way. And how do we do this? Well, we sell ideas by reassigning thoughts. We tap into our audience's hearts and their minds the exact same way you sell a ready-made. He or she is not a candidate or a cause, but a set of conceptual principles, elevated above all to be a pure belief. It is easy to sell an iPhone or a BMW, but to sell a candidate is simply to sell a concept. If you donate to this guy, it's not like you get a cool phone, but you get to participate in the idea of what he represents. This is the basis of the ready-made. It is only art if you believe that it's actually art, if you can be convinced. This is really the basis for all art. But the toilet is very extreme. Not everybody is convinced. I mean, look, it's 101 years later, we still argue about the validity of this toilet, and is it art, and what is art, and why does it matter? And that is why the ready-made is the most provocative art object of the 20th century, because the debate is still alive today. It's fundamental. What moves people to believe? In fact, our audiences believe in the concept of a Reagan or a JFK or an Obama as more than a candidate. They are belief systems, just like those ready-mades. And we are like Duchamp, convincing the world to believe. In the end, art and politics is really not that different. We're both turning dog bleep into diamonds on a daily basis. The only difference is an artist can convince the entire world that a toilet is art. Thank you.